Hey, what's up, everybody? Gonna do a reaction, man. This is a tribute. It is a birthday tribute. We are going to be remembering Tommy Bolin. The great Tommy Bolin passed away at only 25, man. And he's even at that youthful age, he's left a great mark, and especially the whole idea of what could have been if Tommy lived for even another 10 years, the great music that he would have produced, you know what I mean? So what I'm gonna do here, man, is we are going to kind of feature Tommy going through different kind of genres in his playing. He was well noted for being a great rock guitarist, but he was also well noted for infusing all different types of blues and jazz and R&B and a whole myriad of fusion into his playing, so he wasn't so much to be stapled down into one area, which is fantastic, having that kind of variety in his repertoire. So what I'm gonna do here, man, is first off, we're gonna check out some tunes that Tommy was guesting on. So this is from Billy Cobham's album Spectrum, and it's called TAURIAN MATADOR. Now, Tommy was only 22 years old at the time of that recording. And then another Billy Cobham's song called Red Baron. And then we're also going to go into Alphonse Mouzoun's album Mind Transplant. And he is playing on that song called Happiness is Loving You. And then another Alphonse Mouzoun album. The same Alphonse Mouzoun album, and another track he's playing on called Golden Rainbows. So that is what we're going to be checking out. So as you can tell, he's crossing genres here, which is cool. Anyways, man, I want to give a shout out and a thanks very much to Akachita. Thanks very much for the recommendation. I appreciate it, man. So Akachita says, "Hey Wayne, being the self-proclaimed greatest Tommy Bolin fan on your channels, I'd like to request a birthday tribute. Tommy was born this day in 51, this day being August the 1st. If it's August the 1st, and hopefully this makes it onto YouTube, you're watching it today. More than likely my patrons are going to see this probably the day before. So Tommy was born on this day in 51, and I'm hoping that you and the rest of our little community will enjoy this look into some of Tommy's jazz rock fusion with two of the greatest fusion drummers of the past century, Billy Cobham and Alphonse Mouzoun. These selections also contain some of the tastiest bass you're ever going to hear. I love my bass grooves. I'm still fascinated by the fact that Tommy never learned to read music, but just played from his heart and was able to adapt to any genre while maintaining his own signature sound. Such an amazingly natural player. If I don't see you in the future, I'll see you in the pasture." Tommy Bolin, 1975. All right. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. So what we're going to do here is after our initial reaction to the first song, we'll do a little bit of background on Tommy, and Akachita provided a couple of links to a couple of different reading sources. So we'll check those out. So without further ado, man, TAURIAN MATADOR, Billy Cobham, featuring Tommy Bolin on guitar. Let's get it. Help me plug it in. There we go. thing's trying to say something. Fantastic. That was sweet. That was really, really nice, man. Fantastic musicianship. That jazz rock fusion is fantastic. All the instruments definitely had great prominence on this, but yeah, the guitar, that shit was talking to me, man. I don't know what it was trying to say, but it got my attention for sure. All right, man. So yeah, what we'll do is we'll just introduce Tommy for those of you who don't know him, and then we'll hit up a little bit more of the song detail and song information. So, Tommy Bolin. Thomas Richard Bolin, August 1st, 1951 to December 4th, 1976, was an American guitarist and songwriter who played with Zephyr from 69 to 71, the James Gang from 73 to 74, and Deep Purple from 75 to 76, in addition to maintaining a notable career as a solo artist and session musician. Wow, he was busy. In a 75 article, Bolin called himself an entirely self-taught guitarist who plays by ear, stating, quote, "I only ever had 4 lessons. I don't know any scales at all. I know what to play, but don't know any scales because I never bothered to learn any," unquote. Wow. In 2008, a book titled Touched by Magic, The Tommy Bolin Story by author Greg Prato was released, which featured interviews with former bandmates, family members, and friends who recounted his entire life story. The same year, a photo of Bolin was used for the front cover for the book Getting Tighter, Deep Purple 68 to 76 by author Martin Popoff. Not to be confused with Peter Popoff. You remember that dude? Let me know if you know who the hell I'm talking about. In 2010, several well-known artists gathered to create a tribute album titled Mr. Bolin's Late Night Revival, a compilation of 17 previously unreleased tracks written by the guitar legend. A percentage of the proceeds from this project will benefit the Jackson Recovery Centers. Producer Greg Hampton, who has previously worked on such archival Bolin releases as Whips and Roses, co-produced with government mule leader Warren Haynes a tribute to Bolin, Tommy Bolin and Friends, Great Gypsy Soul, which was released in 2012 and featured contributions from Brad Whitford, Nels Klein, John Schofield, Miles Kennedy, Derek Trucks, Steve Morse, and Peter Frampton, among many others. Fantastic. Yeah, such a young guy, you know, and gone too soon, taken from us so soon. and still some of these great pillars of the music industry still reflecting back and acknowledging his greatness. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, at such a young age, being a member of these great bands, Zephyr, the James Gang, and Deep Purple, that's really quite impressive. Plus, at the same time, having a solo career, and at the same time, being a session musician. Damn, that is being busy. So, TAURIAN MATADOR. TAURIAN MATADOR appears on Spectrum. It's the debut solo album by jazz fusion drummer Billy Cobham. The album was influenced by earlier jazz fusions of Miles Davis, with whom Cobham had previously collaborated extensively, and Cobham's previous band Mahavishnu Orchestra. The song Stratus appears in the video game Grand Theft Auto 4 of the radio station Fusion FM, as well as being the main sample in the massive attack hit Saved from Harm. Critical reception. Album reception. Spectrum received positive reviews from contemporary critics. However, there ain't no way I'm gonna let this guy ruin Tommy Bolin's remembrance reaction. Let me skip over this entire paragraph. There ain't no way I'm reading this guy's information. Oh man. Why can I not escape this guy? Alright, scrolling down here. Scott Yano was more impressed by the record, and a lot more positive, writing years later in his review for AllMusic that Spectrum remains Cobham's best and an exceptional jazz fusion album with rockish rhythms and jazz improvising. Unquote. Right on. So, I can't believe they gave this guy an entire paragraph. Oh man. Alright y'all, let's check out our next track. From the same album, that being Red Baron. Tommy Bolin on guitar once again. Billy Cobham, Red Baron. Let's get it. Very nice. Very nice. Right on. Red Baron. Beautiful track. And you know that can be extended into an even longer track. Yeah, it's 6 minutes 37 seconds. It can be doubled up easily, you know, and it could apply in so many different environments. You know, I described coming home after a long day, you know, just really nice background at a party, at a nice chilled party, something like that. Yeah, it could be applied so many different places. But that kind of music, man, it's soul stirring, soul soothing, isn't it? So, you know what I was thinking along the course of this, especially these two tracks? I'm thinking about Tommy's youth, his age here being 22 and already being so well accomplished. Obviously, this is probably maybe around the time where he was maybe a member of Zephyr, and then he went on to the James Gang and then on to Deep Purple. But before all of that, he maybe at this time he was getting his solo career going, perhaps. I'm not quite sure what timeline his solo career was off, or maybe it was just going all along congruently. But he obviously got his playing chops being a session musician first. And these very seasoned, renowned musicians accepting him into the fold, putting him on lead guitar at 22 years old, you know, really says a lot. So obviously he had his seasoning as a session musician. And coming off of the momentum of that, they knew that he was capable despite his age, and that, yeah, absolutely. You know, it kind of reminds me of the life of Jimmy Page, how Jimmy Page kind of started as a session musician, and then he was very well respected, very well known. He was around the same age, and then he started to move towards the Yardbirds, and then went on to form Led Zeppelin. So I often say to myself about Tommy Bolin, if Tommy Bolin had lived for another 10 years, he would have ended up probably along the same outcome, the same plateau as that of Jimmy Page. So he's a session musician here. He's amalgamating his style and all of that sort of thing. He hits the James Gang, then hits an even bigger band, Deep Purple. And from there, he can launch into anything. He could probably hang on to the reins of Deep Purple and say, okay, let's go in a different direction. He's got that great momentum going forward with Deep Purple. Or he could start his own thing, but he had that momentum. So if he did not pass at that tender age of 25, I really believe in my mind's eye, he would have probably got another rock going, if not Deep Purple, continuing with Deep Purple, and reach the same height of success as a Jimmy Page. What do you think of that? That's what I see about Tommy Bolin. So whenever you hear me say, man, what could have been if you had given Tommy another 10 years, I see him accomplishing the same level of success and trailblazing as that of Jimmy Page. I see him rubbing shoulders with Jimmy Page where it comes to successes, because they're both coming up kind of like along the same parallel lines, aren't they? You know? And I think Jimmy Page had maybe 1 or 2 years ahead of him at this point, but, you know, pretty much still the same. What do you think of that? Let me know. I'm sure someone's had those thoughts. So, Red Baron. Now, this is coming from TommyBolin.com, and there's a story attached here. So, the story goes, when former Mahavishnu Orchestra drummer Billy Cobham released the Extraordinary Spectrum album in '73, it had the immediate and profound effect of moving the burgeoning jazz rock fusion movement into the mainstream. And out of this came Steely Dan. You know what I'm saying? Jazz had started to move away from its traditional foundations with recordings such as Miles Davis's '69 album Bitches Brew with John McLaughlin on guitar. McLaughlin then started making waves with Cobham on drums and Jan Hammer on keyboards in the Mahavishnu Orchestra. At the same time, rock music was maturing and becoming more sophisticated. Right? Spectrum was the album that presented jazz and funk in a form that young rock record buyers could immediately relate to. The door was thrown open for other fusion acts such as Chick Corea's Return to Forever, as well as Alphonse Mouzon and Larry Correll's 11th House. On the rock side, after hearing Spectrum guitar superstar Jeff Beck almost immediately went into... Let me try that again. On the rock side, after hearing Spectrum guitar superstar Jeff Beck almost immediately went into an intense fusion foray that lasted for many years. This is the time period that I came to know Jeff Beck. This is his period of playing that my father introduced me to Jeff Beck music. Today, as then, Spectrum looms over the rest with its incredible blend of chops, power, and hooks. A large part of why Spectrum works so well has to do with Cobham's choice of Tommy Bolin for the guitar spot. John McLaughlin is rightfully considered to be one of the best guitarists in history, but Tommy's electric tone was consistently superior, dripping with danger, sex, and gut-level impact. Although not as much of a technically studied player as McLaughlin, Tommy still had immense and authoritative technical ability and hung tight to and charged ahead of everything that Cobham's band of seasoned professionals could throw at him. Throughout the rest of Era of Fusion's popularity, heavyweight jazz players would be looking for guitars who could rock out over funky jazz grooves in a direct effort to replicate Tommy. See? I'm going back to what I said. I am more convinced now, backed up by what I just read here, that this dude, Tommy Bolin, would have been on par with Jimmy Page, where it comes to impact, where it comes to revolutionizing sound, and where it comes to showmanship, and where it comes to just the level of success. He would have been shoulder to shoulder with Jimmy Page. I'm more convinced of that. I challenge anybody to convince me otherwise. My mind is now locked on it. I know myself really well. When I decide that this is the thing for me, it's the thing for me. Takes me back to my first, speaking of Jimmy Page, my first Led Zeppelin reaction. When I heard Since I've Been Loving You, I knew that was my song, right? And it would take it would take something really, really substantial to throw it off. Excuse me. So, let's hit up our next track, man. Happiness is Loving You. This is Alphonse Mouzon. And Tommy is just 24 here. Happiness is Loving You. Let's get it. just trying to say. Beautiful. Yeah, man. Jazz musicians are among the best musicians in the world. The way that they can connect that music to your soul and to your being, let me tell you. Very few genres of music can affect you in that way. That is why when you're a jazz fan, you're a jazz fan for life. That's the reason why. With different types of music, it's kind of like you gotta go kind of searching basically for that connection. With jazz, most of it is there and it hits you, you know. There's bad jazz, but very, very little bad jazz out there. It's mostly all good. So, let's do a little read here, man. Happiness is loving you. Happiness is Loving You appears on Alphonse Mouzon's album Mind Transplant. And this is a link to an all-music review by Robert Taylor. Robert says, quote, drummers Alphonse Mouzon and Billy Cobham led almost parallel careers during the 1970s and helped to raise the bar by which all subsequent drummers were to be judged. They were both in legendary fusion bands, Mouzon in Weather Report and Larry Correll's 11th House, and Cobham in Dreams and the Mahavishnu Orchestra. Both led their own successful bands, both reinvented jazz rock drumming, and both released on classic genre-defining recording. And both released one classic genre-defining recording. Cobham's classic was Spectrum, a recording that is regularly considered as one of the genre's best. This Mind Transplant is Mouzon's classic recording that is often hailed as Spectrum 2. The common thread, besides the aggressive drumming, is guitarist Tommy Bolin, where Cobham used Bolin's aggressive playing as a counterpoint to Jan Hammer. Mouzon features the guitars as the primary attraction. The tunes themselves may not be as memorable as, say, Red Baron or Stratus, but the playing is no less inspired. Mouzon and Bolin are a natural fit and push themselves to levels of creativity and skill that few can attain. Raw and powerful, the music herein is what made fusion such a viable musical style. This recording has never been as popular as Spectrum, but was finally released on CD in '93 with the addition of the 15-minute jam session, The Real Thing, easily one of the best fusion recordings of all time. Fantastic, man. Jazz fusion. And obviously Tommy was a part of that spearhead leading the charge. And like I said, out of all of that came Steely Dan, you know? So, and then of course I know that Santana dipped his heels in jazz at the same time. And of course he would go on to kind of fan out into other areas, including blues and especially soul, percussion, and rock and things of that sort, taking him right into Woodstock, and that's when he blew up. So yeah, you know, jazz you can see the threads going out from Jazz and how much momentum was being built there. And like I said, again, if Tommy had stuck around for another 10 years, man, I tell you, and the different directions he could have gone in would have been something to see. All right, so let's hit up our next track, Golden Rainbows. Same album, Alphonse Moussan's album, Mind Transplant. Tommy Bolin at 24. Sorry about my damn throat, y'all. I shouldn't have drank coffee before this reaction. I gotta cut out the dairy in coffee. That's what's messing with my throat. All right, so Golden Rainbows. Let's get it. Fantastic. Golden rainbows. Wow, man. I really love the fusion, the magic happening between jazz and bringing in some of these other musicians that adds to it, adds essence to it, more life and more zest to it. Tommy coming in, making those guitars sing, scream, and cry. I'm telling you, man, it could have been going in such a strong direction where it comes to building momentum. And I keep visualizing that out of this. It's when Steely Dan was coming. They might have been around maybe before this point. Was this 73, 74-ish? And then, but obviously, I think they were probably maybe being influenced by this kind of sound, if not directly from this grouping of musicians along the way, you know. But out of that came Steely Dan, you know. And man, let me tell you, going back to Steely Dan and getting to know them when they were Artist of the Month, I enjoyed the shit out of that, man, so much that I extended a little bit of my Artist of the Month into the next month. I was just digging Steely Dan so much. And I ran out of month before I actually was able to cover more of their material. Yeah, man, the jazz rock fusion thing is really, really powerful, and we've got to do a little bit more of that on the Beyond platform. Speaking of, I think what I'll do here with this, because it's a very strong jazz rock fusion thing, I'm gonna keep this on the Beyond platform instead of posting it on the classic rock platform. I don't want, especially the celebration of Tommy's birthday, to turn into any kind of exchange where it's a pissing contest. Oh, this doesn't belong in classic. Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. And you know, back and forth like that. You should see how juvenile some people become about shit like that. So I'm gonna post this on the Beyond Classic platform, and what I'll do is I will link this reaction to whoever on the Classic platform, specifically patrons, want to click over and check it out, you know. So I think that's how it's going to go, and it'll avoid for me that whole pissing contest thing. I don't want to do that, especially where I'm very, very reflective right now, you know, on the heels of this being Tommy's birthday, and just a couple of days ago on the heels of losing Dusty Hill. So I don't have the tolerance or temperament to entertain any kind of petty nonsense, right? So that's what I think I'm going to do, man. Nobody is going to steal my joy. So let's do this. Golden Rainbows appears on Alphonse Mouzon's album Mind Transplant. And it says here that there's article excerpts from Wikipedia for this album, and it doesn't have a lot of info. Understandable. Okay, let's read what you do have. Tommy Bolin, and these are this is coming from Akachita. This are his notes. Tommy Bolin was always prone to sit in with anyone who would let him. One time, he had sat in on a jam with Alphonse Mouzon and Larry Correll of 11th House in a club in Boulder, Colorado. Sometime in late '74, Mouzon knew of Bolin by his guitar work on Spectrum by Billy Cobham with Jan Hammer, both formerly of the Mahavishnu Orchestra. Mouzon was wanting to record a jazz fusion LP of his own in the vein of Spectrum, so he booked some studio time on October 6, '74 at Glen Holly Studio in Beechwood Canyon in the Hollywood Hills with Bolin on guitar. It was one of Bolin's favorite places to record because it was owned by Bolin's sometime business partner, Philip Polomeni. The sessions included Stanley Sheldon from Bolin's band Energy, later with Peter Frampton, and Rock Grace on, or is it Rocky? I think it's Rocky Grace on keyboards. It's spelled R-O-C-K-E. As Bolin did not read sheet music, he had the songs played to him once or twice, and being such a natural musician, he was able to memorize the melodies and trusted to come up with something on his own. That could be a tremendous amount of pressure. Bolin historian John Hurd in 2005 quotes, Muzan wrote all the material on the original release, and the result was a mix of rock, funk, and jazz that had tremendous appeal among rock listeners. The playing is superhuman, but there are plenty of hooks and booty-shaking grooves. The album is sometimes compared to Spectrum, but it stands on its own as an irresistible listen. Jay Graydon and Lee Retnor are superb, as is the whole band, but the mix of Tommy's advanced rock chops with Muzan's unbelievable thrust and precision was the highlight for many on Mind Transplant. He was pushed right up front on the tunes, which featured him as the soloist. Many of Tommy's fans are drawn to particular parts of his history for tone and style, and the period around the James Gang and Mind Transplant contains some of his most beloved tone and phrasing. Tommy's performances, ranging from the incendiary leads on Nitroglycerin to the beautiful melody and drama of Golden Rainbows, show Bolin crafting auditory gems. Yes. So he was 24 here in just a few short months. He was gone at 25. So man, I tell you, like I said, there was momentum being built from all of this, man. And a lot of people were probably getting their cue. Confirm for me if Steely Dan had any kind of inspiration coming from these collaborations. I'm only guessing because of the time sequence and the time frame, and of course the sound, the jazz fusion sound Steely Dan was using. Well, let me know that. I'm just guesstimating, speculating, and I don't know for sure. But if you know, and you know your history and this time period and the jazz rock fusion, let me know about that. Akachita, I'll be looking for some input from you. All right. So that concludes our look and our read on this excellent quad featuring Tommy Bolin and some of his overlapping fusion work and collaborations with musicians outside of the specific rock genre. And back then, I think it was probably a lot easier to kind of overlap and go back and forth. I know some wanted to stick to a certain platform, a certain formula, where it comes to what they were doing, because at that point in time in the 70s, a lot of them were formulating their style and everything like that. But yeah, with that being said, there was a lot of overlap going on too, and that's beautiful, mixing a little bit with the jazz and the rock and some of the funky grooves, and just basically amalgamating all of it back in the day. And here we go, lending more credit to my renaissance of creativity period. Everybody was firing on all cylinders back then. Why? Because there was a lot of collaboration, a lot of overlapping, and everyone was influencing each other's work, and it's a beautiful thing, man. I tell you, damn, man, if I was around back then. But maybe I wouldn't have been aware. I asked that question. Were you aware of the great period of time that you were part of? Asking this question to some of the old cats. And some of them says, yes, I was. I knew there was a creative bug in the air, and I knew that we were riding that wake of great creativity. I knew that it wasn't going to last, and I was enjoying the moment. Some had that keen sense of atmospheric awareness, whereas some didn't. No judgment, it's just the way that our brains are programmed. Let's go back to Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page had great atmospheric awareness. He knew what the atmosphere was, and he had enough foresight to know where to end up. Let's use Wayne Gretzky as a good example of this. Once Wayne was asked, why do you score so many goals? And he said, two things. I visualize the puck leaving my hand through my stick, going into the net. I visualize that. And I know where the puck is going to be, so I put myself there. Jimmy Page had enough foresight to know where he was going, where he was going to end up, how he was going to put himself there, right? A lot of rock fans know where they were at the time, knew that there was a great creative bug in the air, and knew how it was going to end up and where it was going to go, what the next shift was going to be, so some people have that awareness. If I was back then rubbing shoulders with Tommy Bolin, I believe that I'm one of those keen seeing individuals who would be able to say, I see this guy in 10 years at this level here. I would have probably said the same thing of Jimmy Page, and Ahmet Ertegun saw that in Jimmy Page. Peter Grant saw that in Jimmy Page. Deep Purple saw that in Tommy Bolin. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, man, this guy, 25 years old, he would have been the shit. Give him another 10 years, he would have set the world on fire, just like Page did. All right. I miss this guy, man. And I didn't even know of Tommy Bolin until Akachita introduced me to him last year. So, let me just check what I've got coming up. Let's just say that I'm going to stick to this particular platform being the Beyond Classic Rock platform for this reaction. I got a couple of things going on. I've got to hit up reactions for Amy. I believe Amy's got an album for me. Is it Let It Bleed? I think it's Let It Bleed. Jack, Mike, Charles, Sasha, Amy's hubby. I can't remember what Sasha's got. Yeah, it slips me. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I don't. Anyway, Amy, the lady version of me. Yeah, she's got a Rolling Stones album, I'm pretty sure. And I believe in here, there's a Zeppelin. I believe it's Mike that's got a Zeppelin for us. And yeah, and I can't remember what else we've got going on. But anyway, man, that's what's happening. And I'm sorry, that's the classic rock platform. See, I'm mixing things up from Beyond to Classic. I got to keep the stuff straight sometimes. But anyway, back to Tommy. Yeah, this lad would have set the world on fire. And, he was so influential just in the limited amount of time that he was active, and he was at that forefront of leading the charge of great fusion rock, great fusion whatever, and he would have been a success whatever platform that he ended up with. I think that he would sometimes go left, sometimes go right, but I have a feeling that he would have probably more so been sticking to the boom and the thunder of the more classic rock sound, I think, ultimately. Santana is a good example. He shifted left, he shifted right, he had a lot of fusion going on, but overall, in the end, he's a classic rock artist. You know what I'm saying? So I think that that's exactly how Tommy would have come out of all of that haze back then. Let me know what you think about this. I can talk about this all day as to where I think he would have ended up, how he would have been given another 10 years. Yeah, no doubt, regardless where, he would have been a great success and a great influencer. And, we're already giving him props for being one of the great guitar heroes of all time. So another 10 years, man. All right. Yeah, that's it, man. That's all of my notes. Akachita, thanks very much. It's great to remember some of our heroes of the past, and especially around this time. It always seems that around the latter portion of the summer into the fall, that's where we start to see more activity in regards to us losing some of our icons, or remembering some of them in this case. But that's the feeling that I'm getting, first starting with Dusty Hill. And I'm not saying that I'm looking forward to the next great icon who falls, but I'm getting ready. You know what I mean? In this process that I'm in this business that I'm in, I got to gear myself up like that, because let me walk you through something. Here I am at work, busy, focused, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, right? Something drops. This happened with Eddie Van Halen on the radio. And, it shocks you to to your core, doesn't it? And everything stops, whatever you're doing. And sometimes I can't afford to just stop whatever I'm doing, but that shit happens. And you're kind of your brain is stunned, and I hate that. I hate going through that. So I'm really, really thankful that when Dusty passed, I got a notification from Jeff Akachita and Jeffrey Davis that, hey, sad to tell you that Dusty passed, And so I had enough presence of mind right at that moment just to say, thanks, I won't get home until late and I'll be dog tired, but I'll definitely make sure I do a tribute. And so that weaned me into it. So if I had been in a state of shock, it would have been harder, you know what I mean? Or if I came home at like 10:30 at night, turned on the computer and then saw that, I wouldn't have been sleeping that night. It would have been a sleepless night for me. So I'm glad that that's how I found out about Dusty's passing. Anyway, I'm just talking now. You guys have yourselves a good one. Take care. I hope you enjoyed this. It was great to remember Tommy and his great accomplishments and what he contributed to the jazz fusion mix. That was really special. Thanks, Akachita. I appreciate you, brother. Everyone, have a good one. Take care. And I'll see you in my next reaction. Peace.